ask why you're here today?
I'm sorry, I don't speak English. Very short.
Do you come every year?
No, I'm live 2 years. I'm from Ukraine and from Kharkiv. My husband and two sons now fighting for Ukraine. Yes, fighting for Ukraine. For Ukraine, yes.
Godspeed.
I can explain my English show. I think it's acceptable.
How long have you been here?
3 years.
How did you come?
I come. How I come?
Yes.
I come on the airport. When start the war, I go to Polsha, and then from Polsha I went to America.
And how have you been living here?
I've been here very good. This is fine, very fine place. It's very beautiful, peaceful. So
And why are you out here today?
because I really love my country and I want to support it. So I'm here today.
How do you feel about the UN resolution today? The United States voted against Ukraine and voted with Russia.
I feel very bad about this because I didn't expect that America will go against Ukraine. It was not respectful for me.
How are you dealing with that?
I don't really think about this, so I just living. I tried to live after war, so yeah, try to forget.
Are you a student?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Where are you a student?
I'm 9th grader in Morrow.
And how old are you?
14.
How much?
14.
14?
Yeah.
And what's you don't have to tell me your name if you don't want to. Thank you. And how about you? Do you go to school together?
Yeah, we are in different school, but we are friends, and we try support Ukraine even being in another country, because if Ukraine is our home and we wanna do something good for our country and do everything we can.
What can you do though?
Make protests and show that we wanna change something, that we wanna support, and that we wanna change. I don't know how to explain this.
Were you here at the second anniversary last year?
Yeah,
And did you come to Times Square?
yeah.
How is this year different?
Today, American mind is change. They want to change government, and they change their mind about Ukraine. And honestly, I feel sad about this because in Ukraine it's now genocide, it's terrorism, and it's very bad.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
How you doing, brother?
Okay, great. So just two more. So first, what is the emotion that comes to mind for you right now, 3 years into this war?
That's been evolving. In the beginning it was panic, possibly, heartbreak, over some time it became very draining and exhausting, as for most of the Ukrainians. But at this point, it's determination to continue fighting, strength, confidence. We will keep on fighting. This is about our future, about the future of the Ukrainian nation, but also for peace in Europe and in the world as well. Future of the world order.
Next turn. And just because there's a sound issue when I asked this question before, on President Zelensky's popularity, first, do you think that Ukrainian people want him to stay in power? And do you want him to stay in power and as a president of Ukraine?
It will be a decision to the Ukrainian people. We're a democratic country, and the elections are also done the same way.
I think it's fine, right?
Слава Україні! Слава Україні! Слава Україні! Слава нації! Слава нації! Слава нації! Україна! 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 Дуже скоро будемо починати наш протест. Наразі, будь ласка, візьміть плакати. У нас є плакати тут перед імпровізованою сценою. Будь ласка, розбирайте. Дуже актуальні меседжі для американців. Прохання плакати повернути після протесту. Дякую. Слава Україні! Слава Україні! Слава Україні! Слава нації! Слава нації! Слава нації! Україна! 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 3 роки тому Росія, Путін, хуйло, напали на Україну повномасштабною війною. 11 років тому Путін напав на нас в 2014 році на Донбасі. 3 роки тому нам давали 3 дні. В Україну не вірили. Але ми вийшли на Таймс-сквер. Українці по всьому світу почали підтримувати Україну. Почали боротися за Україну. Наші неймовірні захисники, віддаючи своє життя, віддаючи своє майбутнє, вибороли наше існування. 3 роки поспіль ми продовжуємо стояти. Слава Україні! Продовжуємо чинити опір. Слава Україні! Слава Україні! Сьогодні я проситиму вас зривати свої голоси. Медіа тут. Доля України вирішується сьогодні, тут, зараз, в ці дні, в ці тижні. Нас повинні чути. Нас мають бачити. Медіа тут, тому, будь ласка, давайте проведемо потужний протест. Будь ласка. Прошу вас розступитись зараз тут, створити невеликий простір посередині. Ми будемо починати. 10 кроків назад, будь ласка.
Іди на свою локацію.
Слава Україні! Ukraine is bravely defending the democratic ideals. Ukraine is bravely defending the security, the remains of security in Europe, in the world. For 3 years of the full-scale war against Russia, we are Ukraine, Russia has committed countless crimes against humanity. Entire cities wiped off the map. Hundreds of thousands of civilians killed. Thousands of children deported to Russia, stolen by Putin, stolen by his terrorist army. Since the day one of the full-scale war in Ukraine, Russia has brought devastation the world has not seen since the World War II. It's important to call the enemy for what they are. Russia is a terrorist state. 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 Bucha, Mariupol. I hear different names of cities. There's so many. It's hard to choose the order. But Russia has done so much pain, has killed so many people. The world must hear and must remember. You cannot negotiate with terrorists. If you give them milk, they will bite off your hand. Putin only understands the language of force. That is the only way he has to be dealt with. Through force. Through strong and independent Ukraine. Through powerful, independent Ukrainian army. Well, Ukrainian army. That defends not only Ukraine but Europe. We need more weapons. We need more air defense. We need more aid. Because this is not just our fight. This is existential fight of the free and democratic world. This is an existential fight of the free and democratic world, and we need this world to support Ukraine. So the Putin and his allies can never win. More weapons for Ukraine! 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 Air defense for Ukraine! More defense for Ukraine! Air 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 defense for Ukraine! Слава Україні! Слава Україні! Слава Україні! Слава нації! Слава нації! Слава нації! Україна! 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 On the first day of the full-scale war in Ukraine, thousands of Ukrainians gathered on Times Square, just a few blocks down. There were thousands of Ukrainian immigrants that have not come here because of the war, and have come here earlier, before the full-scale war. We were here on the first day. We were rallying day and night. It turned into a ritual to Today, as we gather here, it appears the chants have not changed. To close Ukrainian sky was the first chant on Times Square. Another one was hands off Ukraine. But today we continue to ask for air defense. We continue to ask for weapons to defend ourselves, to fight back. 3 years in, Ukraine does not have enough air defense. So we must continue asking even more. We must continue screaming, we must be heard. Air defense for Ukraine!
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 Слава Україні! Слава Україні! Слава Україні! Слава нації! Слава нації! Слава нації! Україна! 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 Сьогодні буде довга програма. Довга доба продовжується. Вже третій рік, четвертий рік поспіль, а насправді 11-й. Сьогодні ми розгорнемо величезний прапор України. Сьогодні ви побачите тут різні спогади щодо війни. Ви почуєте промови людей, які допомагають Україні на різних рівнях. Я прошу вас сьогодні тут залишитись, побути до самого кінця протесту, до 9 години вечора. Бути присутніми, показати, що ви тут, що ви є. Але зараз хотілося б почати з урочистої пісні України «Гімно». Одну секунду.
Крим це Україна! 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 Crimea is Ukraine! 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 Donetsk is Ukraine! Donetsk is Ukraine! Lugansk is Ukraine! Kherson is Ukraine! Zaporizhzhia is Ukraine! All Ukraine! Donetsk is Ukraine! Luhansk is Ukraine! Zaporizhzhia is Ukraine! Donetsk is Ukraine! Donetsk is Ukraine! Donetsk is Ukraine! Zaporizhzhia is
is important to be recognized by our partners. But the United States of America is the primary partner. Ukraine doesn't just fight for its own existence. Ukraine fights for the security of Europe and for the global world order. The world order that was set by the democratic countries. That is why it is important to remind right now, when Russian propaganda machine is working and trying to confuse the truth, that Ukraine fights for freedom. Ukraine fights for freedom.
Ukraine fights for freedom.
Ukraine fights for freedom. Ukraine fights for freedom. Ukraine fights for freedom. Ukraine fights for freedom. Ukraine fights for freedom. Ukraine fights for freedom.
Stand with Ukraine.
Stand with Ukraine.
Stand with Ukraine.
Stand with Ukraine. Stand with Ukraine.
Stand with Ukraine.
Stand with Ukraine.
Stand with Ukraine.
Stand with Ukraine.
Stand with Ukraine.
Stand with Ukraine.
Stand with Ukraine.
Stand with Ukraine.
Stand with Ukraine.
Stand with Ukraine.
Stand with Ukraine.
Stand with Ukraine.
Stand with Ukraine.
Stand with Ukraine.
Russia is a terrorist state.
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 Russia is a There were thousands of Ukrainian immigrants. We were here on the first day. We were rallying every night. Today, as we gather here, it appears the chants have not changed. With the first chant on Times Square.